This is Grow by Design. Are you a business owner struggling with the direction of your company? Do you hesitate, wanting things to be perfect before you take action? Do you question your strength as a leader? If you answer yes to any of these questions, this is the show for you.
All right, hey everybody, we are back again. I'm super excited to have Zoey on the podcast here. I've got some notes. We are kind of prepping for this, and we're getting to talk about something that I know we hold extremely important, and that is really the urgency and efficiency of our company. And we're going to kind of dig into how those are some of our values. But Zoey is our office manager. She's a badass. She is involved with running her own cake pop business, No Bad Lemons, and she's just a doer of all things and a promoter of good culture. So Zoey, introduce yourself a little bit. I mean, I know everybody knows you, but you might as well do it again.
Some people know me, and you kind of just laid it all out there for me of who I am and what I do and kind of what I'm all about. So yeah, it's always fun to be on here and chit chat about kind of what's going on and how we live out a lot of our values.
Sweet. So when we decided to do this podcast a while back, that's immediately we said we could talk about urgency and efficiency, and it was really just some stuff in the company. I mean, one of the things that sticks out to me is some of the internal office stuff that I know we're wanting to continue making better, and another thing is we're constantly going through in Illinois it's the off season, and having team members still be efficient with things even though it doesn't seem as urgent because it's not a job getting done. It's things that just need to get done to make us more prepared for next year. So with these two things, and those being our values, maybe you could dig in a little bit on how we kind of like really try to live by our values, kind of from your perspective.
Well, I know urgency, that's one that stands out now more than ever, in an odd way. You wouldn't think it would, because we are in our off season and it's super slow weather-wise,
Yeah.
Being a landscape company. But now is the time where the office is we do prepayments for our fertilizer clients and our package clients, and we are still trying to collect some kind of income to help with the business, and then also give our clients like a fun discount with things. Help serve our clients even better. And then when it comes to like our shop stuff and our field staff, we do keep a couple of our landscape crew leaders on staff, even though most of everyone else is laid off. And that's, cleaning trucks, that's prepping mowers, shop projects, cleaning things. I mean, literally anything that we are able to do that we don't have time for, whenever things are crazy. So we always say, come the end of December, it's like, oh, we've got the off season. It's almost like we think we have time, and then it ends up like you blink, and then now it's February 5th, and we're like, gosh, we haven't even made it through half our list of things we need to do. So every off season, I feel like we get better and better about being urgent with our off season tasks that make a huge difference, because it just sets everyone up, office and field, for a super successful spring season, because once spring gets here, the gates are open and it is just crazy.
And then it's right back to that. Like, I think that talking on operating from an office, like, we're trying to stay urgent to get the stuff done because we have such limited time. And ultimately, like, I remember when we redid the values, and I'm looking at our mission statement and our values right now, and the values themselves. I remember when we kind of picked all these out and we narrowed down the list of like 100 values. Urgency was the one that I was just like, we have to throw that on there, because like that has to be important. With like, it's always a frantic rush to try to get done, and like those are two things that were massive. Efficiency was already on there, and a lot of the other ones are great. Family, quality, teamwork, and accountability. Accountability is huge. But just knowing that like urgency still needs to stay kind of top of mind of everything. But keeping that right now in the off season, trying to have that urgency of getting done. But once it shifts to season, then it becomes like the frantic rush of how urgent we treat things as an office. I mean, it's everybody, right? It's not just the office. But when you start getting inundated with work, I know it's a common thing, and I think everybody still struggles with this, is they feel like everything's important. And everything is. It's like this ruthless trying to determine what's the most important fire to deal with right at this moment. And so from an office standpoint, like, we just hit real quick on the field, and I know we'll probably circle back to that and we'll talk more about, efficiency and all the different things. But from an office standpoint, what are some of the things that like really stick out to you that we try to operate with urgency, how we try to keep that top of mind, and how we don't like lose focus on like we really have to try to go because we've got such a limited amount of time.
Um, like in season or off
Yeah,
season?
yeah. Once we get in season, because then it's like really. I mean, I know not that we're not operating that way year round, but once we get in season, that's when you really get to the deal of you only have so much time in the day. You're kind of having to like you're having to pitch some stuff to the corner if you absolutely can because there's stuff you have to get done that day. And how are we still, really keeping that top of mind in that situation?
Yeah, and that's when it's like the most important time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every single day brings, truthfully, so many different challenges, and you actually never know when they're going to happen. You know they will happen, but you don't know how and what. So we really, really hustle as quickly as possible to, whether that's like scheduling something or notifying a client or addressing an issue with an employee. Everything we do that's like on our list for the day,
Mm-hmm.
we act on it as urgent as possible because we know there will be more things. We know
Yeah.
we don't know how long they will take. So the quicker you do it, the quicker it's done, the quicker you figure it out, XYZ. So we just already have that seed planted in our minds of whatever the list is that we have for today. Let's just knock it out. You knock this
Yeah.
out, I knock this out, so we can get it done. That gives us more time after that, to do all the other list of things that maybe we have pushed off, or the emergency red hot fire that pops up that we
Yeah.
are able to spend the time on, because we all know that happens pretty much on a daily basis as well, whether it's big or small. So
Yeah.
just knowing how important it is to just get it done, because again, running a business, there are things that come up every day, so it just sets yourself up and your employees up for success when you are already knocking these tasks out, so then you can urgently get to the next one, or just have simply time for the next thing.
So speaking of tasks, though, so what do you do to really keep on like what's your strategy to really stay on task? Because there are those things, there are those kind of like what we said, like what's most important. You get inundated with so much stuff, all these fires come up, and then you got to kind of get back into the groove. What have you done to really keep that organized for yourself?
Really learning how to juggle priorities. For me, like as a field crew, like operations manager for like the Mo crews, like they kind of come first,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like if operations is held back, then everything is held back. So
Yeah.
it's like as those tasks come in, whether it's an employee conversation or is simply answering a question or something for the route for the day or whatever, like just getting the crews taken care of. So the Mo crews in landscape crews mainly, like they kind of run themselves, for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. So just knocking that out first. And then just knowing what's more of a priority when I sit down in my office for the day, whether that be like a client thing or an accounting thing, or whatever the case may be, but just going through and just starting on something. There's times I don't know what is more of a priority, but I know that once I just start on something and finish it quickly, I can make it to the next thing. So there are times when you don't know what is a priority, but just instead of sitting there overthinking it, just doing something, and you just working your way through it until you do figure out what is more important.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for just doing something in general. Like you keep saying that, and like a lot of times, even if it's making a decision, just making a decision, it doesn't even necessarily matter if it's the wrong decision, because the quicker you make a decision, the faster you can figure out it's wrong to then go on to something else and like really kind of sort through the muck. So I know it can be so inundating to like try to figure out and prioritize things and try to really keep urgent stuff top of mind. I mean, if you could talk to yourself when you first started and give yourself advice for the position you're in now, because like a lot of people that listen to this might be people that are just getting involved in starting a company, or just maybe starting to work with someone, or their spouse or whatever is getting going. What would be something that you wish you would have known originally to help you kind of like prioritize and keep on task and things like that?
It would be exactly what I had just mentioned.
Just figure something out and go with it.
Just Yeah, and that's honestly what I've told so many people that I've had these relating conversations with, of like, just do it, because just like you said, the quicker that you do something, the quicker you learn whether it's right or wrong, and then the quicker you move on.
Hmm.
So I'm someone who, like, I don't want to mess up. No one likes to fail or
Yeah.
whatever, but the more what I've learned is it's okay to mess up, it's okay to fail, because the quicker that you do, you learn. And then if you sit there and overthink everything and take forever, then absolutely nothing gets done. There's no learning, there's no completion, there's nothing. So that's what I would give total advice to my younger self, um, and anyone else, because and that goes in with getting comfortable with failing. It's going to be
Hmm.
okay, because that's how you learn and that's how you get
Yeah.
better. So you kind of have to fail. It's okay.
Yep. So what what else, as far as like you said you jump on a task, right? And you just try to get through it, and just so more of just that message of get started. Did you ever, because I see this with team members, and it's something that I feel like all of us kind of float around, like we're trying to multitask. Did you ever struggle with getting started on something, not just finishing a thing completely, going to something else, and then that actually causing like a breakdown of you finishing the first thing anyway?
Yes.
Okay.
Me and Jess were actually just talking about this the other day, how we're both very hardwired differently. I am someone who, if I start something, I have to finish it before I start anything else. I am
Hmm.
not like, I would say I'm a multitasker, but like the lowest level of multitasker. She is
Yeah.
someone who can like ping, 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 and do all kinds of things and still finish them all. Just and that's the thought of that stresses me out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm wired the way to start and finish it, but that also has held me back on not multitasking in the way that I need to. I will stress myself out because I don't want to do this priority because I haven't finished this other one, when really I need to finish this other one. So it has it's done me a favor, and it's also caused me failure, as well. With I don't know. I think it just depends on your personality trait and how you're able to complete things, because there's people who can do that, there's people who can't. No one's right or wrong. But I have definitely been in the position where I started something and then I went over to do something else, and then I forget to do the first one,
Yeah.
and that's like a and then like but that first one was so important that it made 10 more problems because I didn't finish it. And vice versa. There's been times where it's not been that big of a deal, but I think I want to say I've seen almost every scenario of how that's been good and bad with my position.
So, so yeah, it's really funny that you say that. Like something that I see a lot of times is exactly that. Even if someone can jump back into stuff, well, you jump onto one thing and then you forget the where you started, and like it just makes it two different pieces. Makes you less likely to remember it, and then you just forget about it, and it just disappears from the ether entire, or goes out into the ether entirely. Or if you even do finish it, I see a lot, and sometimes it's the problem with people that say they multitask, because all they do is they stop doing a thing that they could have, like they were super freaking close to finishing, and they could have just got it done, versus jump to the next thing, and then it just makes everything take so much longer.
Right. Right.
Um, so we said efficiency as well, right? We said urgency and efficiency, kind of some of our values, and you can definitely pitch in, and we can take this in any direction you would like to. But another thing that popped up as we were talking about is, what do you think as a company? Because you've seen it all. I mean, you've seen when we were really starting out and to where we're at now, and obviously we've got a long way to go. But as a company, where do you think that we've done really well with efficiency? And this could be anything. This could be the field. This could be in the office. This could be whatever. And where do you think we've done really, really bad at it?
Well, I can say, I can use this time right now as a perfect example, and this same with our busy season. Us in the office, what I witness almost on a daily basis is, there's me, there's Melanie, there's Jess. Um, we all have our own kind of wheelhouse of what we work on every day, but depending on what comes, it's like we'll kind of powwow, hey, I'm working on this, you work on this, you work on this. If we know there are these priorities, like right now, hiring is a big one for us. And also like sales. Sales is always senior. So it's like if this person is doing estimates and selling, and this person is calling for interviews, and then this person is answering client calls, then we're
Mm,
very efficiently getting all of the priorities done. And sometimes that changes. Sometimes two of us are calling applicants. Sometimes
yeah,
two of us are doing sales. So just being adaptable and shifting so we can be the most efficient in the most detrimental time of year, which is now. We're not,
mhm,
there's barely any income coming in because there's snow on the ground. We can't help
yeah,
that. Um, So that's where I've seen it work really well. I'm trying to think of a time where it has been not well. I don't know. I know there are scenarios, but I can't think of a specific
I,
example.
I feel like there's certain things with efficiency where we just, probably could have been structured better. I think like our fertilizer end of things, we haven't been the most efficient because we haven't had the best people in the driver's seat of that crew. There was a time with landscaping that we really, really struggled with efficiency because here again, I think a lot of our biggest efficiency issues. I mean, I'll take full account, or all of us have to take full accountability if we put the people in the seats. So even if they're not the right people, it's still our fault because they wouldn't have been in those seats unless we gave them the seats. But so often it is purely, the decision up front to put the person in the wrong seat, that the wrong people being in those seats does cause just a massive bleed out of we can't get stuff done, or there's frustrations, or we don't even hardly feel comfortable with doing jobs at a time. Like I remember, certain little spots in the landscaping side of things where Jess was just afraid to sell stuff. It didn't feel like it was going to get done, was worried about our capacity to actually be able to handle some of the projects. And I know from an efficiency standpoint, that was one really scary and two really hard because it's really hard to I'm just hardwired now to know kind of what you said. We're just going to go no matter what, and we're going to assume it's going to pan out because it somehow does. Like somebody leaves, it causes a big, massive disruption or problem if they could handle a lot of stuff. And you always think it's the end of the world, but somehow it just ends up like coming back around and one door shutting is another good door seemingly opening.
Right. I agree.
So what other, with the values, if we go kind of off into those, is there any of those that you want to hit on more that you kind of think tie into this conversation? I mean, this conversation is really around urgency and efficiency, but I do feel like a lot of these, pretty much everything is kind of sewn together and they work hand in hand to make sure we said without teamwork, you can't have that without, everybody holding people accountable. Like I just said, the accountability thing of we can't just go, it's so easy. You want to just blame the person. You want to point your finger and say that crew member or that leader is the problem because their crew is fucking up. When ultimately you hired them or you put them in that position or whatever. Or just like in the office, like someone's struggling their brains out and you're frustrated with it. And it's like, usually if you're a person that's has the frustration and trying to figure out what to do with it, you're also usually the person that put the person in that situation.
Right. And the more that you get comfortable with being accountable, like it's not as scary as you think. I mean, again, that falls right into like being afraid to fail, overthinking, which then takes too long, and accountability. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite values of ours is accountability because it's okay to say, "Oh, I was trying to get it done. I did it wrong. I'll do it different this time." And it's like no one's getting hurt, no one's losing their jobs.
Yeah.
So just being accountable with it goes a long way, and it just makes you a little more much more fearless to be urgent about things.
Yeah.
Because your boss, and that's what I actually told one of the Florida office employees whenever I was down there. I'll use you for an example because you're our boss. It's like your boss isn't going to be mad at you for failing. Your boss is going to be mad at you for taking 3 times as long to complete it, and it still is wrong. So just do it quicker. Don't be afraid to mess up because, again, that's just how you get better. And not everyone looks at it that way. Everyone thinks that failure equals stupid or something. And it's like, no, you just get better.
Yeah, and I guess maybe I'm just so used to feeling stupid all the time that's kind of like worn off. But there's definitely something to be said for. I like it. Right when we walk in here, I think Nicole got it with this piece of art or canvas, whatever it is. But it's an iconic photo that says "progress over perfection."
Right.
And like they say, you got to break a couple eggs to make an omelet type of thing. Shit is gonna fuck up, and I don't really understand the anxiety and the worry of not just moving in like that analysis paralysis of a situation, because I'm also not anxious or not stressed out, and I just know that it's not going to get any better to not do anything. It just gets worse and worse and worse and builds up because you're not moving. There's a lot of times where there's like I hyper focus, and you've seen me do it a million times, whether it's money or sales or something, hyper focus on a thing. And it's like, really at the point you got to know, there's things that I could do something about, and then there's things that, like, honestly, at this point, I have zero fucking control of. So why don't I just pay attention and focus on the things I can do stuff with? Because a lot of times those things that you freak out and you think like freaking out will not do anything for it anyway, and actually just basically where you started this off, making positive movement in something seems to kind of like pull you through the muck a lot of times.
Yeah, because what's the worst thing that could happen? You fail and you're like, well, I just did my best,
Yeah.
instead of the opposite. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's something I've lived through it, is being okay with failing, because I'm simply just trying to get it done and get it done fast so I can do everything else.
Yeah.
No one's gonna, hit you for that or fire you for that. I mean, maybe there are some people that would, but you know,
Yeah,
whatever.
I'd be more like, it's harder for me. The biggest hard thing for me is to see like fretting over a thing and not making progress, and just like that, just grinding gears to a halt, because unfortunately I know the deal is we don't have enough time the way it is. So taking extra time to be concerned about things instead of just trying to push forward and make progress, and back to what you said, whether it's wrong or whether it's right, or whether you 100% know which one you're supposed to do, just doing something to at least get started. Getting started's half the battle on all of this,
Right.
all the time. um, so how do you feel in our company? And I know that this ebbs and flows, and I know that you're like the culture mom, right? But how do you feel like the aspect or the value of accountability? Like, how well do you think that's embodied by, your side? I mean, you see obviously your division, your Illinois operation a lot more. How well do you think that's embodied there? Because I remember, like, when I worked in the body shop back in the day, one of the biggest frustrations for me is there was this production manager that like she would come out and she would do what we're talking about, or what I was saying. Like, it's so easy to point at someone, you want to blame it on them, even though you put them in that position. She would come out bitching about shit, and she would be complaining about all the reasons this happened. And I remember one day she came out and she did this, and she was always squawking about all these things, and very often caused a ton of drama with all the technicians. And we know how important it is to, like, one, have respect, and two, try to get on level with people so you can actually make some ground. And she walked back and she was right by my toolbox, and I could just hear, I could see her demeanor if she was just going to complain about all the things that people were doing wrong. And I just pointed in both directions like this. And I looked at her and I'm like, you are so good at saying the problems are everywhere but you.
Oh
And
yeah.
she got immediately like super pissed off. But that's what she did. She was always deflecting and blaming everything on everybody, because she just refused to take. She was never, oh, that's my fault, I did that wrong. So that was a lot to be said, and a really long explanation of me asking the question, how do you think overall, like, our team operates as like kind of like a culture of accountability?
I would say, I mean, it's ever changing. There's always room for improvement with all of us. But one thing I have noticed with field crews that I
Mm-hmm.
think improved big time was, like the incentive program that we have for, like, if you hit the X amount of goal, then we have this thing where they can have the opportunity to make like up to $3 to $5 more per hour on their paychecks. And of course, there are stipulations with that. If you miss an area weed eating, or if you anything detrimental on a property, whether you forget something or you damage something, there's ways to become ineligible for that. And one thing I've seen the field crews grow on big time with accountability is kind of owning that, instead
Yeah.
of being like, well, I told him to weed eat this and he missed it. Well, they're just now a little bit more susceptible to be like, I should have double checked after them.
Yeah.
um, I've seen them all grow big time on that. And that goes for me too. There's times when I route something weird, or I miss something, and that's when I got to be accountable and say, I'm sorry, they didn't hit their numbers for the day because I fucked up their route. Because it's not their fault, it's mine.
Yeah.
And they get the shit end of the stick when I fuck up. So that's why I have to be on my A game. Or they're pissed at me, and that's the last thing I want. So, big time accountability when it comes to, like, again, just getting comfortable with being like, fuck, I missed this, and with that incentive really helps them, because it's black or white.
Yeah.
Whether you haven't, three excuses for why you broke the egg, just say you broke the egg,
Yeah.
and you did. So yeah, I definitely have seen that all across field, office, everything, because just like you said, if they do something, or if your crew member does something, t 10 times out of 10, it's the crew leader's fault. Either
Yeah.
they didn't train them, they didn't check
Yeah.
them, they didn't instruct them.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I've seen it be a super positive um, change in that. Just improving on that.
And I get that people want to skirt the problem, right? Like, it's not my fault. Technically, he did this, so she did this. And it does make sense. But the hard thing with that is, like you said, the whole break the egg analogy. Like, everything, and I don't know how to teach people this, and I think some people will never learn and never understand because they truly feel like making the excuse is always the best thing to do because they're so used to making an excuse for why they didn't perform or why a thing didn't go.
Should I read the quote?
Yeah. The quote, and I can't believe I said this in a podcast or something sometime, and you actually caught this. But what's the quote?
It is an excuse is for one person. It is for the person making the excuse to feel better or to feel justified about fucking up.
I love that quote. That guy's
I do
guy's
too.
a dick.
I have it on my wall.
But just like that, like where I'm going is like I wish you could teach people. And I think people are either going to be someone that like embodies this, hears it, and a light bulb goes off. And then there's people that like where I was going with it, always are going to want to make excuse. That's what they're born into. That's what they've been trained to do. That's what they live to do. And they're like, poor me. I'm a victim. I make excuses because I don't have any fucking control over anything I do. And honestly, the accountability thing, although uncomfortable, and I think it was like Grant Cardone that I was used to hear saying this, it's like, I don't care if someone pulls out directly in front of you and causes the car wreck. You were in the car. You could have been more prepared. You could have stopped. It's still your fault. So if you take accountability for everything, you shift the power dynamic of the situation. If it's my fuck up, I can do something about my fuck up. If I'm pissed and I say, well, it's Zoey did it, unfortunately, like, yeah, I'm your boss and I can try to get you to do something different. But to some extent, I actually have no control over the things you do. But what I can control is how hard I want to work, how much I want to make sure it's right, how far I want to go to make sure a thing is good. Just like you give away all your power when you're in a car and you freak out about the person in front of you and you have road rage. You're actually like giving them all the energy and you're not actually being able to do anything, like, and that's something that being able to take accountability shifts the power to a person who actually has the control to make something different versus always saying everything else in the world is the problem, not me.
And that, like, being the culture queen, like that, like as an employee, it builds like respect, it builds trust. As a manager, when you hold yourself accountable in that manner, the same thing. It builds trust. Your employees trust you more because you're honest with your fuck ups. You're
Yeah.
not making an excuse blaming them, which is totally disrespectful and can be taken so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it just goes full circle on if you're just accountable, you're gonna be more likable. I mean, not everyone cares about that, but I mean, it's gonna help your culture. It's gonna help build respect, and then make your employees or even your manager more likely to trust you with something. So
Yeah.
then you can move up, you can improve, because that person knows, okay, they're honest, they're accountable, blah blah blah.
Yeah. I never so, and I don't know, I gave you a hard time about rose-colored lenses. I feel like I look at a lot of the past parts of my life with rose-colored lenses, and sometimes I wonder, like, how was I actually as an employee? Was I actually a really good employee, or do I just think higher of myself than I actually was? That's a constant thing that I'm trying to exit this little stupid box off my screen so I can see. Okay. But that's something I'm constantly thinking about, right? And because when I say the story, like, I don't think that I was a person that would make excuses because I knew that like nobody gave a shit about my excuses. Well, nobody cares about what I have to say about why I don't do a good job. Like, who the fuck cares about that? We're back to the thing. I see how I so easily said that quote because I'm feeling that it's like coming out of me that like nobody gives a shit. It's only for you. It's just to make you feel better. It's just to make you feel good about sucking, and like, I just think about back to the landscape job I had. I only cared about like outperforming and working better than other people. I mean, there were times that like I'd done something stupid and I tried to make it not as noticeable, but I never tried to be like, if I got called out on the thing, I mean, it was my thing and I fucked it up, because it just, what's saying a thing gonna help? And I do know that I do try to operate a lot like that now. Like I correct myself on try a lot, because I think that try is bullshit. You're either going to do something or you're not. Otherwise, if you say try, you're making an excuse for when you don't do it to make yourself feel better, because I never told you I was going to do it. I just told you I was going to try. Or I say that, like, I try to remove kind of like the wishy-washy or excuse from things. Like I know that I just, like, when I am on the spot for saying things, like in the shower after swimming this morning, I said the mission statement over and over like 4 times, because I was so pissed that I read it in the morning at meeting yesterday. Well, I couldn't see it. My contacts are so fucked up that all I could see were the 2 lines. And in the haste of like, oh my God, I like fucking left out half of it and felt like a dumbass. And I think that that's unacceptable, because I should just be able to rattle it off. And I want to make the excuse of like, that's just what I do because I suck and I guess I'm a choke artist, but I know that nobody cares. This explanation is worthless. But okay, so we've ebbed and flowed in culture. We've done better. We've done worse with that. What do you think are some of the things, because I know we're getting far into this and now we got to fix the video and all the things that I've already screwed up here. What do you think some of the things that we need to work on and focus on most for this year, as far as efficiency and urgency go, whether that be for, the field staff, office staff, company-wide as a whole? What are some of those things that stick out to you?
I think that there's nothing specific that comes to my mind of like we need to work on. It would be more so just finding more ways to improve how we are already, being efficient. For me, I think of like mow routing. How can I make the mow routes even better, more efficient for them? I think of how we do our estimates, whether that's routing our estimates or, and how we put them together. When something breaks, how can we quickly get something more fixed, whether that's bringing out giving the crews extra equipment so they've got that, or whatever. There's a million ways that we could improve. I definitely think that we can improve immensely on just like you mentioned, our fertilizer division and buttoning up a lot of like confusion or, just like this unknown stuff that we're all just kind of guessing at, in ways to just like keep it super efficient. And just kind of figuring out the most seamless way to make that even more successful than it already is.
Okay. I feel like all of those are very big. I know that kind of in Florida, we've got a list of our own, and I know that we've kind of talked about this a lot lately too, that I want to hit on for other people with like an office. I feel like as far as an office, something that we need to focus on and stay focused on. I think me and you talked about this a little bit when we were on the phone, is making sure the people that are actually internally in that office are people that are, wanting to grow and are wanting to expand because we've all seen it in the field. Like we've seen people that like, they want to be a mow crew leader forever or a landscape crew member forever. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I've just realized that there's more and more issue with that. Like the office is so
like ever growing, like technology wise too.
Yeah, it's growing technology wise. It's growing, like we're trying to lead from the front up here and be on the cutting edge of things. And so that means like there's going to be a lot more change, right? We're going to try new things. We're going to do new things. We're going to start things. We're going to stop things. Like that's where I have the hang up of like having the perfect protocol or being trained. Like we might go in a whole fucking different direction, next week on the way we do things. Like literally we came up with the idea of how we're going to like tweak our estimating landscape process company wide. Bree brought it up here because so that happened. I talked to Jess and I'm like, oh, cool, we're just going to start doing this like across the company. And so if somebody knew how to manage that from like a head office person and set appointments, now they have to know all new stuff and change what they say because it's different. It's not the same way anymore.
Well, and that's why, like, this is kind of like a little off-topic thing, but one thing I've learned is, like, when you're hiring people, almost hiring more for, like, character and ambition over skill, because those kind of qualities, like, that's going to be the kind of person that is, like, totally cool with change or totally cool with learning whatever differently versus someone who is, like, has all these skills because they're already kind of set in their ways on how to do something.
Yeah,
And
I
like,
think.
however you want your office to be, our office, like, we're kind of like a wild animal in this
Hmm.
industry with our office. We're pretty hardcore. So it's like you need hardcore people to be, if you want a hardcore business, and that your office is where it starts. It's the hub.
Yeah, the hub. Yeah, speaking of people that aren't fucking hardcore, um, you know, I think that going along with that, like I heard Andy Frisilla. I posted on my reels, but it was just this big long rant he had about wanting to be around winners, and it infuriates him when he's like around people who don't want to be that way. And I can relate because like I just can't like. It's fine if people don't want to do that, but as far as like a working environment or even like a working out or training or sports environment, I can't be around someone who doesn't want to be all in. Like I
Right.
don't understand. It's not bad, and I think that people could be a lot happier maybe just existing than wanting to be all in. Like I literally was just listening to a podcast where this guy was talking about his friends all make like 35,000 a year. They know exactly what they're going to do. They know they're going to hang out on the weekends, and they know exactly who they're going to text, and they know they're going to be back to work on Monday. Like, and they know their whole schedule, and they're happy and they're content with it. And that sounds kind of fucking relaxing. But
Hmm.
also on the same time, being in a professional environment or sports environment or some kind of competitive environment, I can't relate to that at all. And it's hard for those. I feel like it's very hard for those people to all want to be together. You know?
Well, and it starts with you, because this is your business, and that's how I've always looked at it, as your like employee. Like, yeah, I have employees under me, but like I am under you. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Godar, you are someone who, for your business, you want it to grow, you want it to get bigger, you want it to get better. So your people that are directly under you have to have that same mindset and an action plan, because those are the people who are going to flow with your operations, and then to make things bigger and better. If And every business owner can have their own. Maybe there's business
Yeah.
owners that want contentment or something, or maybe a slower growth than those kind of people who are not so urgent. Like, maybe they fit better there.
And we know people like that. You know, like I just and but there isn't anything wrong with that. I guess I just can't relate to that. You know, and but I think everybody does what's best for them. You know, but it's very hard to put people that aren't necessarily going to be geared. Like you can't have people that aren't geared that way are going to weed themselves out of like our situation, or they're going to be like railroaded and pushed into a thing that's best fitting for them to operate that way, just because that's kind of like the requirement. We want people that are wanting to grow and wanting to get better.
And that's like the key way to phrase it whenever like you have to fire someone.
Hmm.
Like, hey, they're maybe not like bad, but like there is a thing of they're not good enough. And
Yeah.
so it's like the famous phrase. I know we've said it a million times to people, because we are a rare breed of business around here, of like, maybe we're just not a good fit for you. Like, there's something
Yeah.
out there that is better for you. Not just, you're not like a bad person, but it's not a good fit because we have goals, and like we
Yep.
have to get this done. So if you don't want to contribute to that because of whatever, that's okay, but you need to go so we can find someone else, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then they can go find something that's better for them.
Yeah. And one piece about that is if you just so often out of like niceness or whatever, you want to keep those people, and we keep them from having a job where they could really fit in and be happy. You know, like for a person who just doesn't want any more, like, dude, they're missing out on a state job. Like a state job, you're actually pushed to not expand. You piss people. Like people will say you're doing too much. Slow down. You're going to make us look bad. Like so,
Hmm.
there's a place for everybody to fit in, right? It's kind of like what Andy, another Andy Frisilla-ism is like the world needs fry cooks. You know, it needs everybody, and it needs all types of people, and there's nothing wrong with any of them. But I think that like probably most people have the most stress, anxiety, and turmoil when they're just not in the environment they should be in. It's probably pissing off the people that want more. It's pissing off the people that want less. And all in all, nobody's as happy. So no one as a whole can do as well. And you just said like maybe this isn't the best place for you. We're not a good fit for you. Um, I think that the values, kind of like looking up at that again, like I think that the values are a really cool tool that I don't know that we Maybe we did. You can enlighten me on this, but I feel like more in the last 2 years, I've brought up, like, when somebody says something, I've brought up, well, how does that work with this, this, and this? Or when someone gets let go, it's like that value's the reason they're gone. Like, and it's just done, you know?
I feel like this last year was probably like maybe I just me noticing it, but I feel like we've really lived at our company values more than ever. Like we've
Hmm.
just like you said, we've taken them and included them in every decision we make, whether that's hiring, firing, changing something, explaining something, like educating employees, because like not everyone reads the company handbook, and so it's like someone gets mad about something. Well,
Hmm.
this rule or this procedure is based strictly off these five veins that run through the whole body of the business, and that's
Yeah.
why. And this is our company. Just because you don't like that we have to urgently do something, or you don't like the efficiency aspect of it, like then go somewhere else, because this is how we run
We
our
do it.
business. There you can't say what does Hilly say? You can't say culture without cult.
Yeah. Yeah. Cult's just short for culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like the best, most well operating companies, like they are kind of like a cult. Everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid, everybody's all in because a company that kicks ass, and I guess what I'm saying is I would promote more cultness in the company, is a company that kicks ass, everybody's aligned, which means everybody's headed in the same direction. And, people are going to always call that a cult because no one gets like, no one gets the idea of going, or a lot of 9 to 5 people don't get the idea of going to your job and like actually enjoying it and wanting to do it. They're like, oh, I got to go to fucking work. I hate this. And they live for the clock out time. They live for Friday. They live for every hour of the day except for the hours they have to be in prison.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And luckily, when you get the right people on the team, no one feels that way.
Yeah.
I haven't, I mean, I am blessed to say that I've never had that feeling at my job, and that makes me feel like I'm in the right place, and that makes me want to be even better and grow and help, keep the train on the tracks with whatever the hell comes my way on
Well,
that
and with
hill.
that being said, I'm also not ignorant to the fact that there's people that hate this job, and
Right.
there's people that hate this place. And that's very evident in the actions of fucking past employees and past never actually were employees and all kinds of other things. Um, but it's the fact of like trying to keep as many people as possible headed in the direction where they enjoy it. I've heard more people here than ever say in reviews that this place is there's a lot of companies where they dread coming to, but here it's kind of like an outlet or like an escape from life because they're actually excited to like come in to work for the day. So, I know that we don't always do perfect with that, but if we're doing the best we can, and even if we have 50, 60% of the people saying that, like that's a huge win. Not everybody's always going to say that.
Right. And I think that's why it has made a very dramatic difference. Maybe not a difference, but how I guess how I've noticed that whenever that now that we've factored in our company values more than ever,
Hmm.
like it makes me more confident that like we're making the right decisions for our
Yeah.
company. It's
Yep.
not always going to be perfect, but there's times when we have to live out our family value more than efficiency, or whether it's we all take the team to the Weebles for dinner and some drinks or whatever. Like there's a time and place when these values like stand out a little bit more. If
Yeah.
it's the heat of the summer and everyone's tired, well, okay, let's take a break. Just doing those nice things. So it's yeah, there's times when you got to live out one value more than the
Hmm.
others, but that's the beauty of having five. They all come into play at the most important times.
Yeah. So, what? I guess in closing, what would be some advice for other business owners or anybody, to in a business or as an employee or whatever the case may be, to make urgency a little bit more of an importance this year and or efficiency a little bit of more of an importance so they could have a little bit more success.
I would say having some kind of like procedure, if that
Hmm.
makes sense, or like a time and place on when you need to question yourself on like, are we being urgent enough?
Hmm.
Whether that's like setting a deadline of like, oh, I'm gonna have this many calls made this time of day, or whatever fits your business the best. But I just said to someone the other day, whatever is not measured is not managed.
Hmm.
So if you want to improve on efficiency or urgency, you have to figure out how to measure that so you can manage it.
Yeah.
Um, so just checking yourself and just, setting goals and then getting an action plan on how would you achieve those goals, and then
Yeah.
that's your action plan right there on how to improve, and then you gauge whether that's successful or not, and you can change them. That's the beauty of it. You can change it however you want.
I like that. Like putting something in place, you have to be urgent. Like, okay, I'm going to make this many calls. I'm going to give myself 15 minutes, set the timer. Like do a thing that drives urgency. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Zoey, thank you so much for coming on here. I hope this whole thing recorded right and we don't have to reshoot the whole thing. We're about to find out as soon as I log off here. But I appreciate you so much. Before we go, how's your business going? And again, your business name and what all do you do in your business?
My business name is No Bad Lemons, and that,
Okay.
if anyone is wondering, because some people wonder sometimes what the hell that means. Um, it stems from like when life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. So
Hmm.
a more positive aspect of life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. So
Yep.
just a little tidbit. Um, but yeah, it's a cake pop business. I've been doing cake pops for like 8, 9 years now. Finally made a business out of it. It's doing super well. Um, I think my next big event is like we're having a Galentine's party at my local Pilates studio. So I get to make a
Oh,
bunch of cake pops for all the girls, and we get to girl it up and have fun. Um, but I'm super excited for, again, just more opportunities. My goals for this year is to do more events and get myself out there even more.
cool.
Um, just with that. So yeah, all positive things coming and a little bit of changes, but that's always good for everyone. So yeah, excited.
Keeping things spicy. Well,
Mhm.
I am extremely proud of you and thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, always a pleasure.